Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Turn it on, yeah, it will come up. Turn it on and just use it as close as you can. Please start at close.
Happiness in Krishna consciousness.
Use it closer as much as you can.
Srila Rupa Goswami has analyzed the different sources of happiness. He has divided happiness into three categories, which are
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Mataji, hold it a little bit like straight. Yeah.
happiness derived from material enjoyment, happiness derived from material enjoyment, happiness derived by identifying oneself with the Supreme Brahman, and 3. Happiness derived from Krishna consciousness.
In the Tantra Shastra, Lord Shiva speaks to his wife Sati in this way. My dear wife, a person who has surrendered himself at the lotus feet of Govinda and who has thus developed pure Krishna consciousness can be very easily awarded all the perfection desired by the impersonalist, and beyond this, he can enjoy the happiness achieved by the pure devotees.
Happiness derived from pure devotional service is the highest because it is eternal. The happiness derived from material perfection or understanding oneself to be Brahman is inferior because it is temporary. There is no preventing one's falling down from material happiness, and there is even every chance of falling down from the spiritual happiness derived out of identifying oneself with the impersonal Brahman.
It has been seen that great Mayavadi impersonalist sannyasis, very highly educated and almost realized souls, may sometimes take to political activities or to social welfare activities. The reason is that they actually do not derive any ultimate transcendental happiness in the impersonal understanding, and therefore must come down to the material platform and take to such mundane affairs. There are many instances, especially in India, where these Mayavadi sannyasis descend to the material platform again. But a person who is fully in Krishna consciousness will never return to any sort of material platform, however alluring and attracting they may be. He always knows that no material welfare activities can compare to the spiritual activity of Krishna consciousness.
The mystic perfections achieved by actual successful yogis are eight in number. Anima Siddhi refers to the power by which one can become so small that he can enter into a stone. Modern scientific improvements also enable us to enter into stone because they provide for excavating so many subways, penetrating the hills, etc. So Anima Siddhi, the mystic perfection of trying to enter into stone, has also been achieved by material science. Similarly, all of the yoga siddhis or perfections are material arts. For example, in one yoga siddhi, there is development of the power to become so light that one can float in the air or on water. That is also being performed by modern scientists. They are flying in the air, they are floating on the surface of the water, and they are traveling under the water.
After comparing all these mystic yoga siddhis to materialistic perfections, we find that the materialistic scientists strive for the same perfections. So actually there is no difference between mystic perfection and materialistic perfection. A German scholar once said that the so-called yoga perfection had already been achieved by the modern scientists, and so he was not concerned with them. He intelligently went to India to learn how could understand his eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord by means of Bhakti Yoga, devotional service.
Of course, in the categories of mystic perfection, there are certain processes
which the material scientists have not yet been able to develop. For instance, a mystic yogi can enter into the sun planet simply by using the rays of the sunshine. This perfection is called lagima. Similarly, a yogi can touch the moon with his finger. Though the modern astronauts go to the moon with the help of spaceships, they undergo many difficulties. Whereas a person with mystic perfection can extend his hand and touch the moon with his finger. This siddhi is called prapti or acquisition. With this prapti siddhi, not only can the perfect mystic yogi touch the moon planet, but he can extend his hand anywhere and take whatever he likes. He may be sitting thousands of miles away from a certain place, and if he likes, he can take fruit from a garden there. This is Prapti Siddhi.
The modern scientists have manufactured nuclear weapons with which they can destroy an insignificant part of this planet. But by the Yoga Siddhi known as Isita, one can create and destroy an entire planet simply at will. Another perfection is called Vasita, and by this perfection one can bring anyone under his control. This is kind of hypnotism which is almost irresistible. Sometimes it is found that a yogi who may have attained a little perfection in this Vasita, mystic power comes out among the people and speaks all sort of nonsense, controls their mind, exploits them, takes their money and then goes away.
There is another mystic perfection which is known as prakamya magic. By this prakamya power, one can achieve anything he likes. For example, one can make water enter into his eye and then again come out from within the eye. Simply by his will, he can perform such wonderful activities.
The highest perfection of mystic power is called Kamavasa Ita. This is also magic, but whereas the Prakramya power acts as to create wonderful effects within the scope of nature, Kama Vasa Ita permits one to contradict nature in other words, to do the impossible. Of course, one can derive great amount of temporary happiness by achieving such yogic materialistic perfections.
Foolishly, people who are enamored of the glitter of the modern materialistic advancement are thinking that the Krishna conscious movement is for less intelligent men. I am better off being busy with my material comforts, maintaining a nice apartment, family, and sex life. These people do not know that at any moment they can be kicked out of the material situation. Due to ignorance, they do not know that real life is eternal. The temporary comforts of the body are not the goal of the life, and it is due only to the darkest ignorance that people become enamored of the glittering advancement of material comforts. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has therefore said that the advancement of material knowledge renders a person more foolish because it causes one to forget his real identity by its glitters. This is doom for him because this human form of life is meant for getting out of material contamination. By the advancement of material knowledge, people are becoming more and more entangled in material existence. They have no hope of being liberated from this catastrophe.
In the Hari Bhakti Shodhodaya, it is stated that Prahlad Maharaj, a great devotee of the Lord, prayed to Narsimhadev, the half-lion, half-man incarnation as follows. My dear Lord, I repeatedly pray unto your lotus feet that I may simply be stronger in devotional service. I simply pray that my Krishna consciousness may be more strong and steady, because happiness derived out of Krishna consciousness and devotional service is so strong that with it one can have all the other perfections of religiousness, economic development, sense gratification, and even the attainment of liberation from material existence.
Actually, a pure devotee does not aspire after any of these perfections because the happiness derived from devotional service in Krishna consciousness is so transcendental and so unlimited that no other happiness can compare to it. It is said that even one drop of happiness in Krishna consciousness stands beyond comparison with an ocean of happiness derived from any other activity. Thus, any person who has developed even a little quantity of pure devotional service can very easily kick out all the other kinds of happiness derived from religiousness, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation.
There was a great devotee of Lord Chaitanya known as Kalavecha, Sridhara, who was a very poor man. He was doing a small business selling cups made from the leaves of plantain trees, and his income was almost nothing. Still, he was spending 50% of his small income on the worship of the Ganges, and with the other 50% he was somehow living. Lord Chaitanya once revealed himself to this confidential devotee, Kalavecha Sridhara, and offered him any opulence he liked. But Sridhara informed the Lord that he did not want any material opulence. He was quite happy in his present position and wanted only to gain unflinching faith and devotion unto the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya. That is the position of pure devotees. If they can be engaged 24 hours each day in devotional service, they do not want anything else, not even the happiness of liberation or of becoming one with the Supreme.
In the Narada Pancharatna, it is also said that any person who has developed even a small amount of devotional service doesn't care a fig for any kind of happiness derived from religiousness, economic development, sense gratification, or the 5 kinds of liberation. Any kind of happiness. Any kind of happiness derived from religiousness, economic development, liberation, or sense gratification cannot even dare to enter into the heart of a pure devotee. It is stated that as the personal attendants and maidservants of a queen follow the queen with all respect and obeisances, similarly, the joys of religiousness, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation follow the devotional service of the Lord. In other words, a pure devotee does not lack any kind of happiness derived from any source. He does not want anything but service to Krishna. But even if he should have another desire, the Lord fulfills this without the devotee's asking.
So reading happiness in your service. So Mati, you please summarize what you read last. Are you using mics? Yes.
For a devotee in Krishna consciousness, he has all the happiness. Even without asking, the Lord will provide him with all the happiness.
Shall we summarize the different kinds of happiness? There's going to be feedback in this direction.
extra.
Hare Krishna. That's alright. Hare Krishna.
We put it behind you. Put it right behind you.
Behind the wall.
Not behind the wall. Yeah, just leave it there. Should be okay.
Your body is strong. Human barrier. Yeah. So what does it suggest about the happiness in Krishna consciousness? What is the unique characteristic of the happiness in Krishna consciousness?
It's eternal.
It's eternal. Very good.
Transcendental and unlimited.
Transcendental and unlimited. What else? What other characteristic?
It's beyond the siddhis what yogis can achieve.
Yes, it's not accessible to anyone except a devotee. Isn't that amazing? Only a bhakti yogi can access that happiness. Very good. So this is at what stage of devotion service? Did sadhana bhakti, is it bhava bhakti or prema bhakti? Actually, yeah, you're right. There's a difference of opinion there. So I'll accept both answers as correct. Prabhupada puts it in the Bhava Bhakti section. But in the Bhakti Rasamrita, the original book, if you move but according to the teachers of Nectar devotion, they're saying that Prabhupada put that in that position, but actually it belongs to Prema Bhakti. The happiness that Prabhupada is talking about here is experienced at the Prema Bhakti level. Not even at Bhava. Bhava, there will be some symptoms of that, of course. Not that it's not there in Bhava. But the full experience of that is only in Prema. So the next two characteristics after this are the characteristics of Bhava Bhakti, actually. That's what I studied in VIH and Vrindavan Institute of Higher Education, and they did the Nectar Devotion Bhakti Shastri course. Purijan Prabhu there says clearly that this happiness in Krishna consciousness actually belongs to the next bucket, which is the Prema Bhakti. But anyway, sufficient to say that even a beginner can experience something, and Krishna talks about that, right? In the Bhagavad Gita. Which verse does he talk about that? Happiness in Krishna consciousness accessible even to a new devotee. We read that right here in auspiciousness. Right? Under auspiciousness, one of the characteristics is happiness. And that is the sadhana bhakti level, it's not prema bhakti. Are we all disconnected or connected? Sorry, I was called for an urgent meeting. I didn't expect to for delay. But am I saying something totally different here, or am I feel it? I know it takes time to settle down and disconnect, connect, reconnect. You understand the question, no?
Yes.
Happiness in Krishna consciousness we already saw under Shubhada, auspiciousness. Correct? The four characteristics of auspiciousness are: number one,
Universal enduring. Universally enduring.
Universally endearing, very dear to the whole world. A devotee who takes up Krishna consciousness becomes very dear to the world. We saw that with Mrigari the hunter. We saw that the prostitute with Haridas Thakur. She met her a devotee. As soon as she took up Krishna consciousness, she didn't become pure devotee overnight. But when she gave up her activities and became a devotee, everyone loved her. Mrigari the hunter was a cruel hunter, half killing animals. But when he stopped that, everyone respected him and they offered him prasad and respect and they glorified Narada Muni. Oh, you made devotee out of such a cruel hunter. So the universally beneficial, number one. Number two, beneficial to everyone. Yeah, liked by everyone and beneficial to the whole world. Liked by the world and beneficial to the world. And third characteristic is they acquire saintly qualities, yes. And fourth characteristic is happiness. So right in the Shubhada level there is happiness. So there is no denying that a devotee experiences relief from material distress, which itself is happiness actually, isn't it? If I got a bad headache, if a headache stops, I feel I'm happy. Even though I'm only feeling the absence of headache, not real happiness. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that is material happiness. It's simply absence of suffering. Or today I don't have headache, I'm happy. Doesn't mean you're actually happy. It only means you don't have headache. In material world, that is the best you can expect. The real happiness, oh, that's really sensitive. Poor Bhakti. He can't even scratch his head. That's why I normally prefer behind the wall, but I don't know. You are the expert. You know better. Yeah. So the happiness is right there. And secondly, even in Krishna, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, right? No, not that one. What is that verse? Vishaya vinivartante nirahara siddhina raso varjam raso pesya param drishta nivartante. What is the param drishta? Higher taste. Huh? So the higher taste is happiness also. So Krishna consciousness brings happiness from the very beginning. And it always increases. Anandam buddhi vardhanam. Right? In the Shiksha Ashtakam, Lord Chaitanya says, Anandam buddhi vardhanam. Vardhanam means increasing. It doesn't decrease. So these are some of the characteristics of happiness in Krishna consciousness, which is far beyond the material world. And it does not produce any material reaction. Happiness in the... Should I use the mic? Normal mic? Might be better?
No.
It's a position, is it?
Position is... let's try probably this one.
Okay, this way. You can block your ears. I'll try it. Hare Krishna.
Maybe can you put it like around there?
The cable is not long enough.
Move the whole box.
And the box. Let's try probably.
Okay, close your ears again. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol. That's a lot better. I thought wall was better than a human body. But add human body, added protection. Is echo, is it?
Anyway, all that just...
Yeah. I'm a little further away. So, the other characteristic is that this happiness in Krishna consciousness does not produce a reaction which is suffering. In the material world, material happiness always is followed by a suffering reaction. There is suffering. As soon as happiness ends, there is suffering. Right? We all experience that. We feel good about something. When that ends, there is a suffering. Adi anta anta kaunteya na teshu ramte buddha. Yehi samspashya bhoga dukkha yodevati. 5th chapter Gita. And na teshu ramte buddha. The wise person says no thank you. We all okay with that? Of course, in very advanced stages, a devotee does not even want the happiness in Krishna consciousness. Can you think of that when that happens?
Kunti Varani.
Yes, very good. Kunti's example. Why she doesn't want happiness?
Because when she's happy, when she's unhappy, she remembers Krishna.
Yeah, when she's happy, she might forget Krishna. So a devotee doesn't even want that happiness. Any other example where a devotee doesn't want the happiness coming out of Krishna consciousness?
Can we quote Hanuman?
Yeah, yeah.
It's like he says, I don't want a liberation if I am not engaged in your service. So
Correct. The happiness and liberation we want even if there is no service. And there are so many devotees, the gopis especially, if the happiness disturbs the devotion service, they don't want that happiness. Like the charioteer of Krishna, Daruka, he was quoted in the Nectar devotion later on. He was fanning Krishna, and seeing Krishna is so ecstatic that he getting tears in his eyes, and was cursing the ecstasy, saying that I can't see Krishna properly, I can't do my service, go away, this ecstasy, go away, I don't want this happiness. So when it's a disturbance to the devotion service, the devotees don't want that happiness. Now the beauty of Nectar devotion is, we'll read about all such exalted personalities. Hanuman is coming there quite a few times. Hanuman appears in Nectar devotion, Daruka appears, the gopis, Radharani, all of these wonderful devotees, we'll associate with them through the pages of Nectar devotion. As we read through that, we'll find more and more examples. And you'll find that this is very much parallel to what Lord Chaitanya taught Rupa Goswami mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. That's why oftentimes we go off into Chaitanya Charitamrita. Because otherwise we don't read Chaitanya Charitamrita, right? We think it's too advanced. It is advanced, and we don't get a chance to read that. So now this is a good opportunity because the same person, same author, Rupa Goswami, was taught by the same Lord Chaitanya. So you can trace back what I'm writing here to what Lord Chaitanya taught him. And that gives us faith in the Guru Parampara. How they are very strict in following the Guru Parampara, not trying to make up something on their own, but they are always faithful to the Guru Parampara. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he read the Sridhar Swami's commentary on the Bhagavatam, and he saw that Sridhar, no, sorry, not Sridhar Swami, who was that? Vallabhacharya, I beg your pardon. Yeah, it's the other way around. Vallabhacharya, commentary on the Srimad Bhagavatam, he found that he had digressed from Sridhar Swami's commentary. Sridhar Swami's commentary everyone accepts as a standard on the Bhagavatam, accepted by all acharyas. The Sridhar Swami is the authority on Srimad Bhagavatam. So whatever commentary writes, everyone accepts. Now Vallabhacharya has written another commentary differing from Sridhar Swami's commentary, differing from his conclusions. And Lord Chaitanya told Vallabhacharya that one should be chaste to your Swami. A wife should be chaste to her husband. So indicating that Swami there has a double meaning. He meant Sridhar Swami. Swami also means husband. So wife should be faithful to her Swami means one has to be faithful to Swami. He indirectly told him that you have written a commentary which is not bona fide. So even someone who is in the position of Acharya got chastised by Lord Chaitanya because not faithful. So all these references you find in the Nectar devotion are traced back to the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So that way you get to read that book as well. Otherwise we don't read the book. So which is why this is taking time in that sense. But every week we are learning something new, isn't it? We are hearing something fresh and new, and we are learning more and more about the mood of devotional service. That's why it's called the Nectar of devotion. Real nectar. How much another aspect of Nectar devotion, which is this happiness in Krishna consciousness, which is very wonderful. Radhanath Maharaj describes this, that a devotee, position of a devotee is so exalted that to be able to serve in Vrindavan, to be able to serve Srimati Radharani, to be able to serve the devotee is willing to take up any position. He is willing to change his species. Now, who was willing to change his species in order to serve devotees? To become a servant of Brajvasis, to become a servant of the gopis. Who was that great devotee?
Not Shiva.
Shiva is coming in a different category. He is the example of wanting to change his gender, become a female form in order to serve.
Brahma.
Huh? Brahma is another example where he is willing to change from human form to a mountain, to become a rock in order to be close to Radharani and all the gopis. Here is Uddhava. Uddhava said, I don't mind being a blade of grass, so I can be in Vrindavan and Radharani and the gopis will step on me. So a devotee like Uddhava, you know in Uddhava, right? Who is Uddhava?
Krishna's cousin.
Yes, that's true, on one level. Yes, and what else? Who is Uddhava? The cousin is correct. What else?
Krishna actually interested that he passes on Bhagavatam to the next generation.
True. But most important, he was Krishna's advisor. In Dwarka, Uddhava's advisor. Krishna would go, when Krishna is the Lord, he would go to Uddhava and ask for advice, as if the Lord needs advice. But he's just an example. A king should not make independent decisions, he should always take advice from others. A leader should always take advice from his team before he makes a decision. Shouldn't think I'm the head of the team, I can do whatever I want. That policy doesn't work. My way or highway. Doesn't work that way. We have to take guidance from others. So Krishna took guidance from Uddhava. Uddhava was so intelligent that Krishna took advice from him. But even he is saying that that position is not that good. I am better off being grass, a blade of grass in Vrindavan. Advisor to Krishna is not good enough. I am prepared to become even a blade of grass, just let me get to Vrindavan. So that is the position of a devotee. And secondly, you all mentioned Lord Shiva. He wanted to become Gopeshwar, a female form, so he could associate and serve the gopis. Same also Narad also. He became Naradiya Gopi to serve. So they changed their gender, your male became female, just to serve the devotees. And thirdly, there is example of Lord Brahma. He's saying, I have become a mountain in Vrindavan, a rock in Vrindavan, so that devotees can step on it. Same thing. So they become Mangad. 4 mountains are there, peaks. What are the 4 mountains? I don't remember. Mangad, I only know Mangad. I forgot other 3 peaks. The 4 peaks in Vrindavan, in Vashana. So they are, not if we find out. But anyway, he's prepared to become a rock, matter, not even human, not even living being, or practically like dead matter, just so that he can serve the devotee. So the happiness in Krishna consciousness is so exalted that a devotee is prepared to go to any extent to engage in devotion service. Not because of happiness, but because they feel completely satisfied in service to the Lord. Completely satisfied. And that is what pleases the Lord. That's what pleases Krishna. One time Prabhupada asked, what is the purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement? Of course he answered this question in different ways, different times. What is the purpose of the Krishna conscious movement? And he said our purpose, only purpose is Haritoshanam, to please Krishna. Simply to please Krishna. Whatever we are doing, we should only please Krishna. If we are able to please Krishna, then that is our success. If we are not able to please Krishna, no matter how wonderful we are doing, it is not going to be beneficial to us. Always we should be considering what will please Krishna the most, not what I want to do. Oftentimes we have this problem, isn't it? We always want to do what we want to do. And we are not trained to think, or we are trying to be trained to think, what does Krishna want me to do in this situation? What will please Krishna the most? So that is called Haritoshanam. So this section is about that, trying to please the Lord and please the devotees. And that is through pleasing the devotees. Okay. So why do?
Prabhu, just the Sanskrit of happiness in Krishna consciousness. What is it called?
It is.
Prabhu was saying Sandra Ananda Visheshatma.
Correct.
What's the exact meaning? Sandra Ananda Visheshatma.
I haven't seen the translation. Proper translate that as happiness in Krishna consciousness.
Sure.
That is the translation.
But why are we calling it happiness, Prabhu, not blissfulness? Because happiness, and we discussed in chapter 18. Difference between happiness and
proper use that word.
Ananda.
Like you said, no? English language is not a perfect language. So therefore, you will find these discrepancies. So let's take what Prabhupada is giving. Let's take it like that. It is a very good point. No doubt, technically there's a lot more to it. But I don't have the depth of knowledge to comment on that. But you are right. It is definitely Ananda is bliss, Ananda is happiness.
Because in chapter 18 we said,
yes.
Ananda is blissfulness.
Yeah, no, definitely. I still remember Monkey Blackwood spoke on that.
Chapter 9 talks about Susukham.
Huh?
Chapter 9 talks about Susukham.
Susukham, correct. Very good point. Yes, you're right. Susukham, correct. So Sukham is there. That Sukham will look like ordinary happiness, isn't it? Normally Ananda is spiritual happiness. Sukha is material happiness. That's normally what we take it as. But in the 9th chapter, as you rightly said, Krishna says, Susukham to Krishna consciousness. That's a very good point.
On the point it says transcendental pleasure, the six types of devotion.
Yeah. So it is transcendental happiness, it is transcendental pleasure, no doubt. It's not material pleasure. Jadananda is called material happiness. That is material happiness from the senses. So in the material world, the happiness comes from the senses making contact with the sense objects. That's considered happiness. That is called Indriya Sukha. Indriya Tripti. Sense gratification. That's what Prabhupada used the word. Sense gratification. Gratifying the senses. Pleasing the senses. What pleases the senses the most? When they make contact with the sense objects. But that happiness is temporary and is a cause of misery, suffering. Yeah. That becomes the cause of suffering. So if you are suffering now, it's because we experienced material happiness before that. Therefore I am suffering now. If we had converted that into Krishna consciousness, instead of going for material happiness, if we had given pleasure to Krishna instead, we would not be suffering the reaction to that happiness. So let's look backwards. If we're suffering now, it's because I indulged in material happiness some point in time, and I'm getting the reaction to that. This is suffering. So next time, don't go for the happiness, you won't go for the suffering. Mataji, you have something?
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
Prabhu, I was thinking that to have children, children are, they give us material happiness. They also give us suffering. I was thinking, but they are property of Krishna. So, are they material happiness, or would they give us suffering? That is for sure. With different age, there is this thing, and we are seeing that material happiness results in suffering. So I was a little confused because even though we put children in Krishna consciousness, then when they become brahmacharis, then again the parents suffer.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, even if you put that in Krishna consciousness, again that also for parents it becomes suffering. So I'm just confused that whether it is material happiness, but they are again property of Krishna. Krishna is giving. So how to take this?
So that's why we have to take care of them. And in that there will be happiness. And see, the problem is not with the happiness itself. The problem is when you get attached to that happiness. That's the problem. Happiness and distress will come. But it's like summer and winter. If I get attached to summer, then when summer goes away, I become unhappy. Shita, Ushna, Sukha, Dukha, Raha. You experience that? We get attached to that. When the children grow up, we become disappointed. When children become brahmachari, we are disappointed. But if we are accepting this as a service to the Lord, it doesn't mean that Nanda Maharaj or any of the devotees of the Lord, they didn't enjoy, of course Krishna is the son, but still, they enjoy the pastimes of the child. Children, Leelas are there like that. They also have, they give happiness, they give distress. And also it trains us to understand that I shouldn't get attached to this. Today I'm happy, tomorrow something else may be there that may not be so happy. So let's take it as, let's do our duty in all circumstances. Tam Pritikshasva Bharata. So we tolerate it. Krishna's answer is, we tolerate that.
So like when we are doing a service, sometimes when we excel in that service, so good thing is that we should back out now because we have already done. Because I was thinking that sometimes we get so much attached to the service, and the other person does it, we feel, oh, but I did better.
Yeah. So, become envious and so many are competing.
So maybe that is why it becomes a suffering when we get even in Krishna. It's a very subtle thing.
It is very subtle. Yeah. See, now we are trying to please our own ego rather than please Krishna. That's whenever we move away from pleasing Krishna, that's when the suffering starts. If our aim is to only please Krishna, then there's no problem. But if I want position, I want power, I want some respect, I want prestige, then naturally it's very, very painful. Because we are not serving Krishna anymore. We are using Krishna to satisfy our ego, to get some position and power. When you have that position, naturally it's not going to work out. Then we are missing the purpose of devotion service. That's not devotion service anymore. Or at least at best it is mixed devotion service. Definitely it's not pure devotion service. So as long as devotion service is not pure, there will always be contamination. And as long as there is contamination, there is going to be some reaction to that, material reaction. Okay, shall we go read the next paragraph or the time? So then let's move on to the next item of devotion service. You finished that, no? Madhu? Jamlila Madhu, did you finish that section? Happiness you finished, no? What did you just finish reading?
Yes. We finished reading
Yes?
Happiness in Krishna
Yeah.
consciousness. We went up to the end.
Up to the end. Okay. What's the next one?
The rareness of pure devotional service.
Rareness. Okay. Who was supposed to do that? Okay, we'll ask Vijay. Can you read? Just read and we'll discuss. Rareness.
Which paragraph?
First on the beginning of rareness. That section.
rareness of pure devotional service. The rareness of pure devotional service. In the preliminary phase of spiritual life, there are different kinds of austerities, penances, and similar processes for achieving self-realization. However, even if an executor of these processes is without any material desire, he still cannot achieve devotional service. And aspiring by oneself alone to achieve devotional service is also not very hopeful, because Krishna doesn't agree to award devotional service to merely anyone. Krishna can easily offer a person material happiness or even liberation, but he does not agree very easily to award a person engagement in his devotional service. Devotional service can in fact be attained only through the mercy of a pure devotee. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 19.151, it is said, by the mercy of the spiritual master, who is a pure devotee, and by the mercy of Krishna, one can achieve the platform of devotional service. There is no other way.
Yeah, so that paragraph you can summarize.
So it says that in the initial stage of spiritual life, we have to undergo so many austerity, penances, and for attaining self-realization, but you cannot execute by yourself. You need a guide, which is the spiritual master. And it's not only the spiritual master, even Krishna's mercy is required to achieve the platform of devotional service.
Very good. So any comments on that? Anyone has any comments? Okay, read next paragraph. Continue.
The rarity of devotional service is also confirmed in the Tantra Shastra, where Lord Shiva says to Sati, "My dear Sati, if one is a very fine philosopher, analyzing the different processes of knowledge, he can achieve liberation from the material entanglement. By performance of the ritualistic sacrifices recommended in the Vedas, one can be elevated to the platform of pious activities and thereby enjoy the material comforts of life to the fullest extent. But all such endeavors can hardly offer anyone devotional service to the Lord, not even if one tries for it by such processes of many, many thousands of births." So here Lord Shiva says to Sati that by different by analyzing different process of knowledge, by like Jnana Yoga, he can get liberation from material entanglement, and by making sacrifices, he can be elevated to the higher level, like having the happiness of the fullest extent. But it's nothing comparable to the pure devotional service. Even if we take 1,000 births, also we cannot get this happiness what we get from devotional service.
Right.
Shall I continue, Prabhu?
Yeah.
In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is also confirmed by Prahlad Maharaj that merely by personal efforts or by the instructions of higher authorities, one cannot attain to the stage of devotional service. One must become blessed by the dust of the lotus feet of a pure devotee, who is completely freed from the contamination of material desires. So here Prahlad Maharaj says, that's quoted in Srimad Bhagavatam, we cannot achieve devotional service only by our own efforts. We definitely need the guidance of a pure devotee who is nothing but the spiritual master. Unless we take the shelter of the lotus feet of the spiritual master, we cannot achieve the stage of pure devotional service.
Saruji, I had one question. How can one become blessed by the dust of the lotus feet of a pure devotee?
Good question.
What is the question? What is the question, bro?
You can put you the mic again.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
So, how does one become blessed by the dust of the lotus feet of a pure devotee?
By rendering service to the spiritual master.
Yes.
And submissively inquiring.
Yeah. And also literally taking the dust from the feet. Both works out.
So Prabhu, again I've got a comment here.
Yeah.
So I think in one of the classes I remember you mentioning that we can only get the mercy of a Vaishnava if we are extremely fortunate.
Yeah.
And that is why the Bhagavan Guru Krishna Prasada by Bhakti Shastri.
Correct.
So we have been extremely fortunate to.
Yeah. That's right. Only
Brahmanda Brahmita Kono Bhagavan.
After many lifetimes one get that opportunity. Correct. Here Srila Prabhupada is paraphrasing the instructions of Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj says to his father, Matidna Krishna Paratar Satova. Remember that verse? Mito Padyate Greva Adantaku Vishtam Tamisham Puna Puna Charvita Charvita. That unless we get the mercy of a devotee, and that's the context here. To answer your question, to get the mercy of devotee, we cannot do it. But on the other hand, we also have to do our part. What is our part here? What is our part? What is our contribution to get the mercy of the dust of the lotus feet of devotee? What do we have to do?
Follow instructions?
Yes, we have to follow instruction and specifically
So
service, yeah. Service, and we should follow instructions. So Prahlad Maharaj is saying that you cannot become Krishna conscious by the effort of yourself or the help of others if you have taken a vow of Griya Vratanam, that I will enjoy my senses at any cost. I won't give sense gratification. I have taken a vow that I will somehow or other try to enjoy sense gratification at any cost. Who has taken that vow? Such a person will be dragged by uncontrolled senses to the darkest regions of hell. In other words, he won't get the dust of the lotus feet of a devotee because of his uncontrolled senses and because of the vow to enjoy material life at any cost. So because of these problems, one is not able to get that mercy. On the other hand, we follow instructions that Prabhupada has given us to follow the four principles, to chant the holy name, to associate devotees, Panchanga Bhakti. We follow that sincerely, then automatically, I shouldn't say automatically, that makes us a better position to receive the mercy of a devotee. You can't say automatically, I'm chanting, where's the mercy? You can't demand like that. But that makes us eligible for that mercy. It's still the discretion of a devotee. Krishna has given the power of attorney to his devotee. If you want, you can bestow mercy. It's up to you. I give you the power. That's the Madhyamadhikari. Devotee is given the power by the Lord. If you want to bestow mercy, anyone you choose, I will bless that devotee. If you have chosen that devotee, I am happy with your choice. I will help that devotee. So that's why we pray to devotees. Please bless. Please bless us. Prabhupada's father would always pray to the sadhus. Please bless my son to become a devotee of Srimati Radharani. Please bless him. And they would give their blessing. Prabhupada would comment on that, how his father kept on asking, please bless my son, please bless my son. And we see also in our movement, parents are always asking devotees to bless their children. Always asking for the blessings. And we should not think that devotee, his blessing is not good. That is very offensive. We don't know which devotee can give blessing that please the Lord. We should not think like that. Rather, we should ask every opportunity we get, we should ask for blessings for ourselves and our children to make advancement in Krishna consciousness. That is the humble position. So yes, so here Prabhupada talking, quoting from the 7th canto of Bhagavatam, Prahlad Maharaj instruction. And Prahlad Maharaj's case, he was blessed by the mercy of Narada. Right from the womb of his mother, he heard instruction of Narada Muni. He was blessed by the dust of the Narada Muni's lotus feet. So he became Prahlad Maharaj. He had a good fortune. Every day would attend Bhakti Shastri class. His mother would attend. She would fall asleep, but he would be listening. In the ashram of Narada Muni. Okay. Someone else can read the Kamati, you want to make comment?
Yes, Prabhu, even to chant the holy name also we should develop the Trinanda Visvilichena quality as well.
Very good, very nice. Wonderful. Yes. If we commit offense to a devotee, we can't chant peacefully. Have you noticed that? If I have spoken ill of some devotee, has been very harsh, nasty to some devotee, then we can't chant peacefully. The behavior hasn't been proper. Then we feel very horrible. We can't chant properly. So that verse, Trinada Visvilichena, is not optional, but rather it is what we need in order to chant properly. Yeah, that's very important. Okay, someone else can read next.
The fifth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th chapter, verse 8. Sukhdev Goswami also says to Maharaj Parikshit, "My dear king, it is Lord Krishna, known as Mukunda, who is the eternal protector of the Pandavas and the Yadus. He is also your spiritual master and instructor in every respect. He is the only worshipable God for you. He is very dear and affectionate, and he is the director of all your activities, both individual and familial. And what is more, he sometimes carries out your orders as if he were your messenger. My dear king, how very fortunate you are, because for others all these favors given to you by the Supreme Lord would not even be dreamt of." The purport to this verse is that the Lord easily offers liberation, but he rarely agrees to offer a soul devotional service, because by devotional service the Lord himself becomes purchased by the devotee. So, here it is mentioned what Sukdev Goswami told to Parikshit Maharaj, that Krishna is the eternal protector of Pandavas, because Pandavas are ancestors of Parikshit Maharaj. So he is the eternal protector of Pandavas, and he is the director of all your activities, and he also sometimes, in order to carry out your orders, he himself becomes messenger. So other people may dream about it, but you got it, as because of your ancestors. So basically the point is, Lord, it is easy to get liberation from Lord than for a soul to get devotional service, because devotional service, by devotional service, the Lord becomes that person's actually who does the devotional service. But liberation is something which he will easily grant.
Correct. By giving devotional service, he becomes purchased by his devotee. Correct. He becomes purchased.
What does it mean?
That's right. Literally purchased.
But he's superior always.
He's always superior. So that is the inconceivable potency of Krishna.
Probably it means that he will do anything for the devotee. He will do anything and everything for the devotee.
Yeah. So that's a very important point to understand. And it appears to be contradictory, right? One hand is saying is supreme, another hand is saying is purchased by devotee. So in philosophy, Krishna is Bhagavan, philosophically speaking. He is Bhagavan. everywhere they're quoting so many scriptures, right? Bhagavatam, Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Parama Krishna, Bhagavad Gita, Sarvasya Prabhu, 10th chapter. Everywhere, Ishvara, the universal form, he is supreme. Philosophically, Krishna is supreme. But in Leela, in pastime, he is not supreme. Then he chooses to voluntarily become subservient to the devotee. And that's what is saying, Rupa Goswami saying is very rare. He won't give that to everybody. Like he becomes the chariot driver of Arjuna. Arjuna has to tell him left turn, right turn, go faster, stop, go. And he has to say yes sir, yes sir. He is taking instruction from Arjuna. Who is his devotee? Who is the Jiva ultimately? The Lord, the Supreme Lord, has become subservient to Arjuna. Same with Yashoda also, the childhood pastimes of Krishna. Arjuna, Mother Yashoda, she chastises Krishna out of love. It doesn't mean Krishna is not Bhagavan. But in the Leela, he forgets that he is Bhagavan. He sees himself as little child and mother is so strong. She's going to beat me. I've got to be careful. And he becomes fearful. There's a new book has come out, Shivaram Swami's net, Bhakti Janani, about Damodar Leela. Book on Damodar Leela. Getting as a gift for the next year. So there he describes how when Krishna saw Mother Yashoda coming with a stick, he was actually frightened, not pretending. It's not that he's doing role play or drama or after that he said forget it now, that is just a drama purpose that I did this. But I'm really not scared of Yashoda. But Maharaj said, the Acharyas have said that Krishna actually was afraid of Yashoda. The same Krishna killed big demon like Putana, Trinavrata, so on and so on, right? Same Krishna. In the same Vrindavan. He goes and kills the big demon and comes home and Yashoda shouts at him, he gets scared. Isn't it? So, one is the Om Krishna as Bhagavan, as the Supreme Lord, as Parameshwara, Ishvara Parama Krishna. There is the Supreme Lord, no doubt. And there he kills demons and does all these things. But when he comes to the gopis, when Yashoda, and Maharaj, Pandavas, then he's just a servant. And this is the difficult part of Krishna, which Krishna himself doesn't understand. Therefore he has to come to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to experience that. How is it possible? What is going on here? I don't understand myself. So he becomes his own devotee. And takes the mood of Radharani. So he doesn't understand the bliss of Radharani. He doesn't understand how much love she feels for him. He can't understand these things. He only is the Lord. So Krishna Tattva is very difficult to understand. Radha Krishna Tattva is even more difficult to understand. But Krishna accommodates these apparently conflicting situations in this way. Philosophically, he is Supreme Lord. And Leela is Aham Bhakta Paradhina. I am Paradhina. I am Adhina. I am subservient to my devotee. But Bhagavatam says in the very first verse, Abhigna Swarat is fully, maybe I went too much. It's not move. Yeah. He says that the Srimad Bhagavatam begins with the verse, right? Janmadasyata. In that verse, Krishna is described as Abhigna Swarat. Abhigna means? Abhigna, that is different. Abhigna means fully conscious. He knows everything that's going on anywhere. And he's Swarat. So for that, Mother Rukmini challenges him. You are called Abhigna. You know everything what's going on. You don't know why I am crying. He doesn't know, Krishna doesn't know why Rukmini is crying. You know what Brahma is doing in Brahmaloka. You know what Lord Shiva is doing in Kailash. You know what's happening in Indraloka. Everything you are kept under control, watching everything. But you don't understand why I am crying. When Krishna comes on, Rukmini is crying. Krishna doesn't understand. Oh, why are you crying? So you are Bhagavan, why are you asking me? You should know. And then she truthfully adds, you also don't know what Radharani is feeling for you. Then Krishna decides, I have to come as my own devotee now. There's no other way. I have to, so many people are telling me what's going on and I don't know something. First time hearing that the Lord is getting him a message that something he doesn't know. It's a shock to him. I thought I know everything. Something I don't know.
How is it possible for Krishna not to know that?
Yeah, that's his potency of Leela. That is his pastime potency. That he submits to Yogamaya. Yogamaya covers him and makes him forget. And makes a devotee also forget. A good example is when Krishna shows the universal form to Mother Yashoda. Or when Krishna kills demons. When Krishna uprooted the 2 trees, right? Or 2 Arjuna trees. Another 2 and Manigriva came out of the tree. And nobody thought Krishna did it. They thought some tree was rotten or something else caused it. Nobody would believe that baby Krishna crawling through the trees caused the tree to...
It's a battery.
Huh?
I think it's a battery dying. That's why it is trying to make that noise.
Can you give me a mic?
Just keep it's coming to end, so use the other one.
Hare Krishna.
Just keep this one.
Yeah. So that is why Krishna is got his Leela side, which he keeps it like that. He lets Yogamaya take charge. So that there is freshness to the Leela. Otherwise, if he's just pretending to be scared, pretending to be happy, pretending to be playing, then there's no fun in that. It has to be genuine. So when he shows Yashoda the universal form in his mouth, first she faints. She can't understand that. My little child, what am I seeing here? She doesn't know where she is and what's going on. She completely faints. Then when she wakes up, she thinks it's some dream. She never thought it really happened. He couldn't accept it. That time Krishna is showing his Bhagavan. There is Leela is that he is showing this Ishvara Bhav. But other times when he is running from Yashoda, that is the Leela Bhav. Different Bhav is there. And Krishna enjoys that. That's why Krishna himself expands as Srimati Radharani. Krishna himself expands. He doesn't go and ask some girl, will you be Radharani for me? No. Not that someone got elected, election was there and someone became Radharani. Krishna himself expanded Srimati Radharani. Gopikesh, you want to say something?
Prabhu, we probably a point on Karnataka Prabhu's question. When we say that Krishna takes this position of like a servant of the devotee, or he actually protects the devotee, what I was trying to understand is in our normal circumstances, we actually say that how can a servant be a master? But even though Krishna has become a servant of the devotee, or he is protecting the devotee, he hasn't lost his mastership.
Correct.
He's still a master or supreme personality, and that's the best qualification. He is protecting his devotee. Like we can take the example of Uttara's womb. When he entered into, he went to protect his devotee as probably subordinate, but he had his whole potential there. So when we say I'm actually your servant, that means I'm actually taking a menial position, and I'm not having my whole potency. That's what we always think. But when Krishna becomes a servant of his devotee, he still has his whole potency in there. So that could be like he's servant, but he's still a master.
Yeah, it's not one or the other. It's not one or the other. In the material world, it's one or the other, right? Either you are a servant or you are the master. Here, Krishna is not limited to one of the roles. He can take either role. And he does. He can be the master, he can be the servant. So when he instructed Arjuna, he was the master. When he spoke Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, he was the master. But when he was driving the chariot of Arjuna in the battlefield, he was a servant. So Krishna can accommodate both these conflicting roles, apparently conflicting roles, because he is Krishna. And Lord Chaitanya has combined Radha and Krishna. Combination of Radha and Krishna, both combined in Lord Chaitanya.
Just one question to me. With reference to the just reading in the book, that material liberation is easily available in comparison to devotional service, as the Lord has said. So, how one can get the material liberation without devotional service? And it has been mentioned here that devotional service is very difficult to get. So, I'm not able to understand that. Yeah, clear?
Liberation is difficult to get. Huh?
Material liberation is easily one can get.
Yes.
And devotional service one cannot get easily.
Correct.
My point is, how one can get the material liberation without devotional service?
Yeah, very good point. You see, the devotional service can give any result you want. It can also give material happiness. It can also give material prosperity, if that's what you want. Devotional service can also give you liberation. Devotional service can also give you opportunity to associate with Krishna and his devotees. So it's up to the person performing the service. What motivation they want to do.
Means like devotional service is like a ticket. Out of that ticket you can buy the either material liberation or get the more comforts or whatever it is.
Whatever you want you can, yeah, it depends on desire of the
But
devotee.
Lord has said that devotional service you can you won't get easily. You have to
Pure devotional service you won't get easily. You can get mixed devotional service available much more easily. So when a devotee engages in devotional service, what result he gets out of that depends on the attitude of the devotee. Depends on the motivation of the devotee. If I am doing devotional service to get something in return, then I will get that object, material desires will be fulfilled. For example, chanting, let's say. If I chant offensively, materially can be successful. I want to get a job, I want to get some money, I want to win the lottery, whatever desires are there. If you want to use the chanting for that purpose, that's why you see some people chant Hare Krishna, but they don't make any progress. Why? Because they're chanting purely for material reasons. They're not chanting for pleasing the Lord. They're not chanting for devotional service as a service to the Lord. You see that? So if you chant offensively throughout our life and not care about it and somehow just do it, then the material desires will get fulfilled. And the more material desires get fulfilled, you think, oh, because chanting and waiting the material desires, I better keep my chanting going. It's very good. But we won't get pure bhakti. Right?
Isn't that material liberation is kind of a byproduct of bhakti anyway? So you will get the material liberation.
That is other aspect. But suppose somebody has a motivation to get only liberation, they'll get liberation. But those who don't have aspiration for liberation, but they only want to please the Lord, which is pure devotion service, then that person automatically gets liberation. That's true. In fact, a person is already liberated even in his body, even now, even in this material world. Ihayasya haradasya nikila pyavastasu. That verse is there, no? It's coming up in the Necter devotion. That just like a iron rod placed in the fire has the qualities of fire, even though it's not fire. So a devotee gets that benefit of pure devotional service, and liberation is included in that. Happiness is included in that. But it has gone to the next level, higher level. Make sense? Right.
Prabhu, can we cite any example where a devotee who's got pure devotional service or who's doing pure devotional service is aspiring for something lower than that? You know, because when we talk about someone who's got pure devotional service, then he's already gone past that.
Yeah,
so why would he go for anything lower?
No. Somebody has begun devotional service not on the pure level.
But I'm talking about someone who is at the pure devotional service
Then they won't
level.
want it. Then they won't want it.
So, just going back to Prabhu's question, that I mean, if we are at that level, or someone who's at that level,
then what's the point? He's not going to use that ticket for anything else, you know. So he's already gone past that. So if we are at that level, then he's not going to ask for that. And if someone is just trying for material benefit or liberation, then he's not at that level anyways.
Yeah.
So
that's why the Bhagavatam says, Akama Sarvakama Vamoksham Udarati Tivrena Bhakti Yoga Yedit Purusham Param. In other words, don't give up devotional service. Even if you have material desires, still carry on. Like Prabhupada said, if you're not chanting the offense, you don't stop chanting. That's not going to solve the problem.
Yes.
Rather, try to improve the chanting. Similarly, here also, we should try, even if you have those desires, then we should keep on chanting and pray that we take away, Krishna takes away all his desires. And pray for that.
But if Dhruva Maharaj, we can say he started on the material level.
Correct. Very good example. Dhruva Maharaj started with a desire for a kingdom, but when he got pure devotional service, he realized I got a bigger ticket. Why should I buy something cheaper? So, a broken piece of glass and diamond he compares, right? He compares material desire to a broken piece of glass and pure devotional service as a diamond. So I already got diamond, why should I go and purchase, give the diamond and get a piece of glass from somebody? That doesn't make sense, no? Yes, true.
So, in concluding way, we should not have any thirst for material enjoyment, material liberation, and we should keep on doing our devotional at whatever level it is, or it may be, whatever we can do. We should keep on doing our devotional services, and the thrust should not be on the material things.
Yeah, because if you do that, you see, it unnecessarily causes suffering, no? It brings the suffering, what's the point in going for it? Whereas Krishna awards it himself naturally, then happiness will come. Not that happiness is being deprived for a devotee. We should not think, oh, I didn't aspire for it, so I didn't get it, so I'm going to be miserable. No. Krishna gives a liberation, gives happiness. You see, all the characteristics of devotional service, in every one of them, one common thing is happiness. You see throughout all the 6 characteristics. All of them, the devotee feels great happiness. All of them. Starting from the beginning. Relief from material distress, that is one kind of happiness. When suffering goes away, you feel peaceful. That is one level of happiness. That is called Shanta. That's below Ananda, below Sukha. That is Shanta. One becomes peaceful.
So material liberation in one sense is happiness. Material liberation.
Liberation is happiness in the sense that it is freedom, absence of suffering. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu describes that absence of suffering. In other words, if headache is there, if headache stops, you feel some happiness, right? So it's simply absence of suffering, not actual happiness. So liberation is like that. When liberation means mukt ho gaya, mukt means you become mukt, become free from the suffering only. It doesn't mean you get the pure happiness, because that's coming up in the next section. It's called Brahmananda. The Brahmananda doesn't satisfy anyone, because that level, it is only absence of suffering. It's not positive happiness. Therefore, one is not satisfied at that level. One falls down from that position. One can't remain on that level, one falls down. It's temporary. Whereas a devotee who experiences happiness in Krishna consciousness, after beyond liberation, that person, that devotee doesn't fall down. Because it's gone beyond liberation. So, in devotional service, liberation, as Nandgopal Prabhu said, is a byproduct. It's already there in that. One is not bound by material world anymore. One is free.
But liberation itself cannot be material, no?
Yeah, you are right. Material, I just accepted the word simply because it's temporary. Material means temporary. If one falls on it, it becomes temporary. It becomes like material. Even though you are right, liberation means one has to get free from the material world. Only then it's called liberation. In the material world, it's not liberation. That's a fact. Technically, you are right. But if the person falls down, it becomes material thing. As long as it's temporary, it is material. Even though the person got a chance to get out of the material world, it couldn't remain in that situation. I think you had something?
Prabhu, liberation, in the previous paragraph, there was material entanglement.
Yes.
So, like in our day-to-day lives, like if this material entanglement is to try not to get affected by any problems or so is it like to control our mind and to say that Krishna will take care, or is it like that?
Yes, that could be one thing. That could be one thing. It could be one of that. Because,
so we have to use our intelligence and control our mind.
Correct. And not get attached to those things. When you get entanglement, is attachments. Material attachment is called entanglement. Because that attachment we are forced to do things that we don't want to do. They are contrary to Krishna consciousness. Like Bhishma, he did not object when Draupadi was being insulted. Now that action got him entangled. Where did entanglement start? When he ate the food of Duryodhana. When he ate the food from Duryodhana's house, he got entangled. When Draupadi was being insulted, he could not think straight. He made a mistake. He allowed that to carry on. Because of that, he got further reaction, further suffering. You see the story of Bhishma, there is a good example of that. How he gets more and more entangled into things. One thing leads to another, one thing leads to another. But all started with eating the food of Duryodhana. Even a great Mahajan got this thing. That is an example of an entanglement. There are so many examples, that's one of them. Ajamil got entangled with the prostitute. Ajamil. He left his wife and went over to the prostitute. When he got entangled with her, he got so many problems. He became a dacoit, became a thief, robbing. He lost all his principles. That's an example of entanglement. So we should not compromise our devotional principles for anything. If we do that, then we get materially entangled. Sometimes the devotee may compromise for the sake of maintaining peace, but always understanding that that is not where you want to go. Sometimes some compromise may be necessary, just to keep the peace. But that's not a devotee's position. He's praying to the Lord, please take me away from the situation. I don't want to be like this. I don't want to be here. Just like example, you got a work party, they take you to a party to work, You have to go because the whole team is going. But doesn't mean you start eating everything there. You may go there, but don't eat their food. Or have some only fruit or something. So, in all these situations, the devotee is praying, I'm here, I don't want to forget Krishna. Like when Prabhupada was traveling in the ladies' compartment once, he had to travel because he was sick and there was no reservation available. They put him in a ladies' compartment. Or, of course, devotees were there, he was not alone. But whole night he was silent, and devotees asked him, why were you quiet whole night? He said, I was praying to Krishna not to fall into Maya. Now where is Prabhupada? He's so old and he's not well. This is the last thing that you think of Prabhupada getting attracted to anyone. But he said, I was praying the whole night to set an example for us, how we should be careful, not to get entangled. Makes sense? Yeah. So all the time we should see that our devotional service is not compromised. Yes, actually. That makes sense?
Yes.
Yeah, I should see all this, what is making me Krishna conscious, what take me away from Krishna. Take me away, we should be careful. Yes,
Prabhu, I was thinking of actually I was thinking pure devotion service means love for God.
Yes.
So when we have love for God, we can understand on a material level. When there is this person whom we love and he's a very big man, so we are normal people, like we can relate this to Krishna. Krishna is the main person. There are already people who love him so much and we know that these are very close to Krishna.
Correct.
So just asking for material liberation is like this person has so much, it's like he'll keep you in an outhouse, okay? He will not even look at you. So it's a very small aspect.
Yeah.
But when we love someone, we will do so much to get to that, to get too close to those people who are already there with him.
Yes, yes.
So for that we have to do a lot of sacrifice, because when genuinely we love someone, when we sacrifice a lot, then is when Krishna will see us.
Right.
Then is when Krishna will see, okay, they are sacrificing not for me, for my devotee, like that. So for even thinking of liberation is a very smaller aspect.
Yeah.
Pure devotion service means love for God.
Correct.
So when we have to love someone, when we genuinely try to love someone that way, when we know that we belong there, then we actually have to work very hard to go to stay in the house then, not in the outhouse.
Correct, very good, very nice point.
That's why I was thinking, that is why Prabhupada is telling that material liberation or liberation is not
liberation
so
and material desires, they never make us happy. They never make us happy. Never, never. No point even going for it. It's not worth it. But we have to have the realization. No one can force us to think like that. Yes, Vijay, good morning. I'm conscious we're going over time, but we'll...
Prabhu, I heard this example, I don't know where and when, but like for example, if we want to keep ourselves fit, we do exercises. During exercise, we get sweat as a byproduct. But nobody does the exercise to get the byproduct as sweat. So that is not their main goal. So if you want to do the devotional service, like liberation, material liberation is a byproduct. So we should not aim for the sweat, which is a material liberation. We should aim for the devotional service, which is like,
Very nice.
highest goal.
Good example. Nice. That works very well. So, is that a good answer for your question? I shall let you not answer the question. I should answer. But I get better answers. That's really good. That's coming up next. Moksha Lagu Krut. Pure devotional service derives liberation. Tuchya samajhta. Take it as tuchya. So that is the advanced stage. Alright. Gone over time now. Thank you.